Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining today's live webinar. I'm Dr. Shastri from New Divergent Business Consortium, and we will cover today for inclusive workforce. So I have a special guest, and I will introduce him in a couple of seconds. But before I introduce him, if you wanted to join, ask us any question, feel free to ask us through the comment box, and we will try to answer your questions. And thank you very much for supporting this channel. And you know that New Divergent Business Consortium support specifically people with neurodiversity, as well as disabled and less able people. So we are here to support you if you have anything related to business development, personal development, and so on. And we will try. We bring individual speakers to different of our live webinar to give you the insights, as well as give you some tactical information, and as well as core information for you to grow your business. So today we're going to be talking about employability, and we have a special guest, Richard Hiran. So Richard is an employability lawyer, and he's supporting businesses locally and nationally. Thank you, Richard, for joining this webinar. And how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, Dr. Shah. It's very kind of you to have me back again.
Yes, thank you, Richard, because to the audiences, you probably know that we had our previous events with Richard, and here we go again, because I think he has excellent knowledge to contribute to your business growth. Because when you are doing business, either you were an SME or you were or individuals, employability and understanding employment and law is a core thing for anyone to know about and have extended knowledge. So Richard is the person to give us core knowledge on employability and all other laws and other things. And he is contributing to the local economy. So Richard, I just wanted to ask you if you could introduce yourself again to the audiences, because we might have some new audiences, they don't know who you are. So if you could tell us who you are and how you contribute to the businesses, that would be great.
Of course. So as you said, I'm an employment lawyer. I've had previous HR experience and pulled that back with me into the employment law frame. And because of that, what I tend to do now is, rather than spending day by day in the employment tribunal, I actually help businesses to figure out how to save themselves and their employees from that really difficult, horrible nightmare, to be honest, because it's not fun for anybody.
That's the struggle, isn't it? Because when you think about employability, either you work with individuals or you work as a self-employed or whatever, we have, we don't have substantial knowledge, because we are not based on any specific elements that we can safeguard ourselves. So we have to engage with a person like you. They understand and can safeguard ourselves, because when we do business, specifically neurodivergent person, we intend to do a lot, and we have to engage with people. So when you engage with people or hire individual people, then you need to know what is out there, how you can safeguard yourself, and how you can prepare yourself for the wider population. So, Richard, I just wanted to ask you the first question: that what does an inclusive workforce mean in today's business environment? You are working with many businesses, so how do you level inclusive workforce?
I think one of the things in particular is kind of bearing in mind that you are going to be working with loads of different people with lots of
Mhm.
different needs. So inclusivity in the past, and it is slowly turning in a different direction now, but in the past it was really seen as people who had disabilities, who were perhaps minorities in the workplace, underrepresented. It can still be those people, but I think it's turning much more in the direction of recognizing that everybody is individual with individual needs, desires, aims, values, motives, rather than just pigeonholing it into, oh, this person is in a wheelchair or that person is 21 or 18. It's much more about the person who you're dealing with face to face or over a screen on a day by day basis.
Yes, we talk about inclusivity all the time. The government, they have their specific pattern to work with, as well as every businesses. They want to be inclusive. We can see that. But in terms of adding population to the inclusivity, I have experienced that there are some tick boxes for any businesses. They wanted to address inclusivity, because I have seen previously, I'm not sure if the specification is changed, that if you have 25 people in your workforce, if you have one person, they are labeled as LGBTQ or disabled or neurodivergent or many other categories, it's done for you. You don't need to think anything else. The specs might change. I don't know the recent laws from the government, but does it make inclusive if it's like a tick box? What do you think? What you have seen so far?
I would say that there are businesses out there that do that. It's a shame. I have to admit that one of the things that I've seen recently is gender pay gap reporting just literally
Mm-hmm.
being seen as something that has to be done. And I wish I could say that
Mm-hmm.
this is only one instance that I'm talking about, but I've seen it happen on several occasions of businesses trying to manipulate a report to say that
Mm-hmm.
women are being treated equally to men or vice versa. It's
Mm-hmm.
it can be seen as a tick box exercise, but the trouble is, if evidence is being produced to tick that box, then evidence is also being produced against that box being ticked. So it is
Mm-hmm.
in the employer's interest, particularly given the financial penalties that apply, to do it appropriately and for the right reasons, which again will hopefully link back into its values as a business.
Yes, I totally agree with you. But as you said, that is different for different employer. So we hope for the best. That okay, employer nowadays, they think about real employability, because when you talk about okay, inclusive workforce, and for your business and understand the possibilities, if you don't include many people within your framework, you are missing, I would say, you cannot understand the possibilities, because I have, from my experiences, I have seen that disabled people, they might be disabled, but they might be a core elements to grow your business, their brains or their tactics or something that could change your culture, that could change you, could go to the next stage. So if you don't include disabled people, neurodivergent people, and in terms of neurodivergent people, they are brilliant, and you know that that we are cluster now is superheroes. It's happening. It's happening. People are embracing us for being neurodivergent. Not everyone, but most of us with the high spectrum, they can contribute greater rather than a neurotypical person. So if you don't embrace this typical population, you're missing the possibilities that you could grow, isn't it?
Absolutely. They can see things that might ordinarily be missed in a business, close loopholes,
Mhm.
just develop very creative solutions to things. So, yes, I think you're absolutely right. It is very much about recognizing who's in your workforce, but also taking a step back from that before the hiring stage, and kind of figuring out the skills that you yourself as a business owner or as a team of people actually lack, because then that helps you to figure out, okay, we've got a gap here that we need to fill. We need this kind of person to help us out. And that in itself can feed in marvelously into the inclusivity range. I won't call it a spectrum. I think it's a range of skills within a business.
I totally agree with you, because when you say inclusive workforce and adding value to that, if you do not understand the possibilities, how to grow, you will be left, isn't it? So there's the way forward for anyone to grow. Thank you, Richard. So to our audiences, thank you very much for joining this live webinar. I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui from Neurodivergent Business Consortium, and we have Richard Huron, the employability lawyer, and we're going to be talking more on how you can have an inclusive workforce to understand the possibilities. Because if you wanted to understand future possibilities, you need to have an inclusive workforce, and that is working for many businesses globally, nationally, and locally. So, Richard, I just wanted to ask another question to you. When you say inclusivity and as well as business growth, what are the key benefits of fostering an inclusive work environment?
I think one of the key benefits that I see is that you're probably going to find that you aren't in the employment tribunal that much, because you're literally having conversations with people, bringing people into the business who you're willing to work with in creative and productive ways. People who feel not only that they have the right to be there, but that they are actually recognized and what they actually put into the business is recognized. So if you have that, quite frankly, the risks of going to an employment tribunal are reduced, which means also, on the flip side, the costs of going to an employment tribunal and defending yourself are reduced. So it's a win-win.
I totally agree with you, because when you do not have a inclusive workforce and when you do not care about them, it's totally true. It's totally true. So to our audiences, thank you very much for joining today's live. I think we have a question here from Azama. So thank you, Azama, for sending this question. So she asked, how can business start their journey towards inclusivity?
I think there's a brilliant answer to that, and it's a willingness to take a very good look at themselves first of all, because if they are doing it, as we mentioned earlier, simply to tick a box, then that's all well and good, and well, slap on the back to them, but what's it really achieving? But if they actually turn it round, put the microscope on themselves for a change, and actually look at why they're doing something, then that is the key stage. It's the self-awareness that we hear so much about in today's kind of mindfulness and well-being community. I think it's much more about looking at yourself and thinking, okay, what do I need to change, or am I achieving what I want to? Which applies very much to businesses as well, because businesses are ultimately owned by people. In today's mindfulness and
I think that there was a technical issues. Yes. So if you talk about mindfulness, we have some more questions as well here. So if you talk about mindfulness and a lot of other things for us to be inclusive, so it depends, I think, for the SME leaders, if they also need to look into what I have seen so far, that you need to have a budget if you are looking for inclusive workforce. And mostly SME leaders, they don't have that much funding to care about the inclusivity. So as you have seen many businesses so far, do you have any suggestion for the SME leaders that, okay, if you are thinking about budgets, then you can streamline your inclusivity in a way that will determine your inclusivity, but that will not increase your expenditure?
I think that's a good question. It's one of those ones where you have to keep an eye on it, and both the employment tribunal and the employment judge actually deciding a matter will take that into account in terms of what we call the reasonableness of doing something, because ultimately, if the business is doing something that is going to bankrupt it, that's not reasonable, because it's just going to lose people lots of jobs. So yes, budgeting is crucial in terms of anything. It's also potentially one of the stumbling blocks to inclusivity in a business, because sad to say, it does come to the bottom line of a spreadsheet at the end of the day in terms of what can be achieved. But I think that also ties into how you communicate that to the staff, so that the staff aren't left feeling aggrieved. They're left with more understanding of, in an ideal world, we want to do X, but the finances mean that we have to do Y.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I think it will be helpful for many of the viewers today. So thank you, everyone, for joining today's live webinar. And we have some more questions, and I'm going to be showing those questions to you from Salahuddin Biplov. So how can businesses design inclusive training and development programs? It's from Salahuddin.
There's a straightforward answer to this one. Talk to your staff. So I can think of situations recently where I've had employees who have come along and said, oh, I really like the way that this training is done, or I don't like. One of the ones that is a bit of a dividing line is where you do an induction, for example. You have a screen like this, perhaps, and somebody is just left to sit there for an entire day, clicking through endless slides. That will work for some people, but for other people, they will just go to sleep and they won't learn anything at all, or not very much. So having some kind of feedback when you do a training is, first of all, a very key thing, because you are talking to the people who are receiving that information. It's very similar to the customer service process. When somebody is doing something, they're on the receiving end. Asking them, how did you find this, is the most insightful form of feedback on how something can be changed for the better.
I think, Salahuddin, you have got your answer, because you need to train and understand your employee first before you create a training programs, because your employee, they might, every person is different in this world. So if I compare one thing with the other person, sometimes it might work, sometimes, most time it will fall apart, because the training program designed for your employee, you need to think about that what percentage of your employee, they are suitable to add value to that program. And then you need to understand that, okay, you need to transform this program maybe individually for individual person. Why? To be very specific and person-centric. Because when you talk about inclusivity, if I'm giving a lesson to a person, he's autistic, my understanding, my lesson can need to be different. And when I'm talking about an ADHD or other spectrum, then my understanding and lesson needs to be different. Why? Because the message acceptance is different for individual person. So if you're designing something, you need to hire someone they can understand this positiveness as well as understand the diversity. Because without understanding diversity, if you hire someone, they will create a program that will not grow, that will just hinder the possibilities of growth. Isn't it, Richard?
Absolutely. It's very much a key principle of inclusivity that you take in each individual person as you find them. So there's never going to be one size fits all. It's going to be trial and error.
Mhm. I agree with you. So we have next questions. Just give me a second. The question is, what are the common barriers to achieving workplace inclusivity? And it is from Muradujaman.
So this one, money, that's a big one, which we've discussed already. I think one of the other big ones is leadership buy-in, because if you want an inclusive workplace, it's not going to start from the bottom. It has to be fed free from the top. So if the top aren't on board,
Mhm.
and that is very much a cultural point, I'm afraid, rather than a legal one, if they're not on
Mhm.
board, then it isn't going to happen.
And I have seen many businesses. When I talk to individuals, okay, they are struggling, and the top levels, as you said, the top levels, they don't have any solid knowledge about inclusivity. That's one thing. Another thing that, okay, money is another problem that we can say, okay, if we wanted to make inclusivity workable, you need to invest money. Another thing is that the attitude. So some of the top level people, they don't care. It's like
Mm.
more slavery. Like, okay, this is my company, and this is the things I'm providing. You have to work with that. If you cannot work with that, um, there isn't anything that I can do. So if you work or leave. So in that scenario, how can we bridge the gap with the top levels as well as the middle and the bottom levels?
Education. I think it has to be education, and a very tailored kind of education. Because yes,
Mhm.
you can have a wonderful presentation talking about inclusivity in the workplace, but the people at the top, the people in the middle, they want to understand what they're going to get for achieving these things, for bringing a inclusive workforce in. And that's probably going to come down to what profit margin is there in having this. So focusing on those creative solutions, the gaps that the business owners and the senior managers didn't even know existed, that's going to be quite persuasive, because you're speaking their business language at that point, rather than saying, oh, you need to respect everybody in the workplace, because they
Mhm.
don't see an outcome to that.
And another thing that I notice when I'm working with new division people or disabled people, that they also don't know how, if they can get government aid support. So
Mm.
we know that there is a scheme over there. I also supported with that scheme, that is uh, access to work. So access to work can aid you, specifically if you need any support to aid individual if they have disability, neurodiversity, or any other form of mental health and other problems. And it seems that the people on the top, they don't want it to know about them, or they don't have any knowledge, or differently, if they wanted to access those things and aid the facility to the employee, that can make some people's life better, isn't it? But I also have seen that companies, they just they just ignore these possibilities, they just ignore these things. So in
Mm.
that way, as you said, that we need to give them knowledge, education, but what else we can do?
I think just picking up on one of the points that you made about access to work, once somebody about something, they can potentially approach somebody who is a specialist, not myself, but somebody who is a specialist in applying for grants and support of that nature. So that's worth pointing out as well. I think in terms of what else can be done, there is a trend, it seems, these days of looking at competitors and what they have done. I mean, it tags on slightly to the education point, but looking at, let's say, a competitor that has embraced inclusivity, whether it's neurodiverse people, whether it's people with certain protected characteristics, whatever it might be, and pointing to them and essentially saying this is what they've achieved. And also, their accounts are publicly available and this is what they've earned. Why don't we do this as well? It might feel very underhanded, but it's almost like there's a specific phrase for it which has escaped me at the moment, but it's kind of like the wrong thing for the right reason in some ways, but it achieves a goal that otherwise might be missed.
I totally agree with you. So we have some more questions. We're going to go into that in a couple of minutes. So to all the viewers, thank you very much for joining today's live webinar, and thank you very much for your questions. And we appreciate your support. As you know, today we are talking about inclusive workforce and the possibilities, because if you do not have an inclusive workforce, you don't know what are the possibilities you can have for the future. As a neurodivergent and disabled person, I think we have many people like me in the community. They can contribute greatly to increase possibilities for your future. So rather than thinking about their disability, picking on their neurodiversity, you can help or aid them to grow your business. And that's why the society will grow and the economy will grow. And you know that we have a new government in the country, and they are more into growing the economy, and as well as steering you for different kind of things. So if you're thinking for inclusive workforce, this is the right time for you to grow your economy. Think about people they can aid you and grow your business. So I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui, and today I have Richard Huron, the employability lawyer, and we will talk about how you can make your workforce more inclusive for the future and contribute greatly. So we have the next questions. So Muhammad Mahbub Alam, he said, welcome to our events, Richard Huron, the Heronetter. I just wanted to ask you one question now. Heronetter, can you let people know about the Heronetter? I think that people will like it.
Sometimes I downplay it, sometimes I throw it right out there in the center. So literally, it came about because I was having a conversation with a couple who I know who run a business called Yellow Tuxedo over in Hampshire, and they kept on calling me the Hironator. And I just said to them, why do you keep on calling me this? And they just said, that's how we see you. And there might actually be a business outcome for using it as your name. So I tried it, it stuck, and now everybody calls me that. So that's pretty much the story in a nutshell.
This a really pretty word, I would say, and catchy. So when you talk about and add these kind of propositions to your name, like this and that really uplift your profile. If you are working on socially, people like those things. So thank you very much for a exclusive word, Haranata. And yes, so when we talk about inclusivity, we need to know a lot of different things, because inclusive workforce is not all about you aid them. It's all about working with them, as well as understand their individual growing needs. So you might be aiding them for one thing, and they might need other things to aid it as well. So you cannot say that, okay, I have solved one of your problems and I cannot aid the other ones, because when you add an inclusive workforce, you need to aid them, you need to talk to them, you need to understand their actual needs, and then grow your business. I know there's a lot of work for any businesses, any leaders, but starting is the hard point. But when you start it, then it's easygoing, isn't it? Because this person, that, okay, this person are looking for this kind of support. And when there are like more than hundreds of individual points when you hire someone with disabled. But it's not in fact a thing for individuals. From that 100 points, maybe you just need to look into 2 or 3 individual points for a person. So there's another thing. That's not tailored. The laws not tailored for specific reasons or a specific person. And we are working towards it. We are working to individuals, and we were working with local government, that how can you change these things? Because when the individual employer, they see, okay, is a list of more than 100 things, then we need to look into. If we hire an inclusive workforce, then we cannot do it because we don't have capacity. In that circumstances, what is your suggestion or views?
I think in that kind of situation, it's almost like you have to look at it as a majority rules kind of situation. So the thing that will benefit the greatest number of people in the business. And whilst you were mentioning that, I thought of a case that was actually decided in the Employment Appeal Tribunal last week. It's called Minnis Childcare and Hilton Webb. Just to give kind of a brief summary, in that situation was visually impaired. So she could read, she was not blind, but she had trouble reading. And what happened was essentially all the instructions from the business came through in basically a font size of 10, which she had trouble reading, not unsurprisingly. Now, to give them their due, once they became aware of this, the employer did increase the font size. But the argument was essentially that the employer had what we call potentially an objective justification for printing everything in size 10. Now, the actual decision is still pending because it's been sent back to the Employment Tribunal. But the key point was that the employer might have a defense for printing everything in size 10 rather than 12 or 14 because of the cost, having to produce massive bundles of paperwork and send them to each individual employee. So that is quite a good case for putting into context that point about balancing that kind of majority rules point and the cost. So we'll see what the Employment Tribunal actually says about that one once they've reassessed it. But I thought it was quite a good case for kind of demonstrating the position between the 2 points.
Yes, so that's the thing, that most of the disabled person or neurodivergent person, they will suffer because when it comes to the inclusivity, and if it's not a big corporation, if you're working for SMEs, they have limited budgets. And when you talk about budgets, the inclusivity is streamlined to differently, and people in the workforce, SMEs, they don't have the habit or to hire inclusive workforce because of these problems. Because either it's like catch 21 situation, either you do it or how you do it or how you carry it out. So all are in a model, and I think the government support is also lagging, because yes, you have access to work, but access to work will not support you independently. That's the point. And if you do not increase your capacity, if you do not grow, then it will stop. So it's back to zero again. So if you're supporting someone for 1 or 2 years or few months, depends what they are supporting, then it will stop. And the employer, they will think, okay, it will stop, then we cannot fund it, so it will back to zero again. So this population, they will be unemployed, and we need to have a mechanism in between that okay, you have access to work support, you have the mechanism over there and you train them. But some of the things you need continual support. It's not like that you're giving support for a couple of years or a couple of months and then you take it away. So if I need support with dyslexia, then I need support for my entire life, isn't it? So if a disabled person, as you said about the limited eyesight, I have limited eyesight. So that is permanent. If I am being supported with someone, and then the supporting person is moved after a certain time, that okay, we cannot support you anymore, then there is nowhere. So do you have any suggestion to the employer as well as to the government how we can bridge those gaps together to have more inclusive workforce as well as get to the bottom of these unemployability problems?
I think the first point to make is for all of us, watch out for the King's Speech, which I think is coming tomorrow. Not the film, but literally a King's Speech. So our King. There is some mention in there about jobs and employability. So we never know what is just around the corner. I think that's really the government angle dealt with there, because obviously they make the rules, I just interpret them. But in terms of employers, I think I mentioned this last time as well. I think it's worth exploring employee benefits, because employee benefits are constantly evolving, new things coming on the market, and they don't necessarily need to be costing thousands of pounds. For example, I know one provider which is based in the West Country, which basically offers policies for about £4 per employee. Now, for an SME, that's more likely to be affordable. Obviously, affordable much more for a larger business, but it kind of puts things into context, keeping an eye out for the products that are on the market, particularly the ones that are likely to foster that ongoing support, and also just being open-minded about the cost of them, because they might not break the bank.
I totally agree with you. Thank you, Richard, for your valuable points. And I think all the viewers, they will like it, and it will contribute greatly to SME leaders as well as neurodivergent, disabled, and less able people. And to all the viewers, you know that we run this webinar every Tuesday from 12 to 1. And we have a special guest with us to talk about individual problems in the community, and as well as how you can grow your business. So if you are looking to have any support, feel free to contact Richard. He's the right person to support you with employability and all other laws and things. And if you wanted to contact me directly, feel free to contact me and DM me through LinkedIn and all other social media. And you are watching live today at LinkedIn, YouTube, so Facebook, and all other social media. So thank you very much for your support. And if you wanted to ask us question, feel free to ask us. And we will have, mostly we are end of the session. We just have another 20 minutes to go through with the other segments of the live programs. So in relation to the next segment, that overcoming the challenges in creating an inclusive workforce. First thing is the recruitment, because if you do not have a right recruitment policies, you cannot create a, you cannot overcome your barriers, because without right recruitment policy, it's always hinder that, okay, are you doing the right thing or not? I have seen universities, as I'm an academic part of my work, that they also shortfall. I was asking someone that, okay, as I have problems, memory problems, as well as dyslexic and autism, a lot of different things. So can I have the questionnaire given it to me for preparation? And they were like falling from the sky. Oh, what are you saying? You're asking for the questionnaire? equally value every individuals. So we cannot supply you the questionnaire. But if you think about inclusivity and all the laws, if someone asks you to supply you the questionnaire, you meant to supply them the questionnaire. You don't judge them if they have a problem. So if you don't ask someone to work if they are wheelchair bound, isn't it, Richard? What is your view on that?
That takes me back to a point called reasonable adjustments in the workplace. So they don't just apply to employees, they apply to candidates for employment as well. So the focus of reasonable adjustments is to level the playing field so that a person who has, let's say, a disability is not put at a disadvantage compared to somebody who doesn't. So talking about the questionnaire points, the kind of answering the questions on the spot might be a trigger for someone's disability, which would put them at a disadvantage to somebody who hasn't got that disability. So providing the questionnaire could be that reasonable adjustment to level that playing field for that person, not giving them better treatments. That's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about giving them an equal chance, or as equal a chance as possible, to show what they're capable of.
I totally agree with you, because as a disabled person, a neurodivergent person, most of our thinking are on a Pandora box. So we have a Pandora box, and we have millions of things in there. So if someone asks us something, we have to look on the Pandora box, what is the right answer for them. And we can be very strategic. When you ask us, okay, can you say the color of the banana? We're going to be saying, okay, the color of the banana is yellowish, or maybe it's become brown. And that's our answer. But if you do not, describe that, okay, I'm asking for your color of the banana, but you need to give us a paragraph of things. So why it is yellow, and how it becomes gray, and why it is gray, what would be the taste, and different individual things. So when you're asking someone, tailoring a question that is beyond their imagination, they will not give you a right answer. So I've been to many interviews, and I wasn't selected of any of them. Why? Mostly, I think the characteristics I have, it is very strong. So people normally, they don't want to hire someone. They will not stay to the company for longer period. That could be one thing. I don't know, because none of them said what is my problem. So most of the time they said, we found better candidates than you. So we cannot explain why we didn't choose you. And if you talk about, okay, you can talk to them in detail, and they must explain why they didn't choose you. But most of us, we don't have that time. We don't want to go into hassles. Most of the neurodivergent people, they are still on a cocoon. Disabled people, because they don't want to go into argue, they don't want to go for something else. So that's the way forward. But still the gap is there. So when you recruiting someone, if the recruitment policy is not right, and you are thinking about your business growth and a lot of other things, you are not having inclusive workforce, because you're saying inclusive workforce. For my cases, I haven't seen anyone. I wasn't recruited, so I was more into business, because, okay, people are not liking me. I don't know what is my problems. Maybe I guessed I have some of the problems that is they cannot consider. So that's why they didn't took me. So I do not want to go into hassle. So I just work with my business and grow that. But many other people in the community, they don't have that strong character. Like, okay, if they are not selected for their disability or neurodiversity, they will be jobless, isn't it?
It is. And I think you picked up on a very important point in terms of a recruitment policy generally. Yes, it needs to be easy to understand because at the end of the day, it will be managers, it will be, for example, the lecturers that you spoke of who would be applying it. So they need to understand step by step what to do. And one of the points in there really should be that they can objectively justify, sorry, legal phrase, that they can provide the rationale for why they did not select somebody, or indeed why they did select someone for a role, rather than saying we just found a better candidate, because that doesn't provide any explanation. In fact, it could heighten the chances of discrimination.
Yes, but you don't uh, really challenge them, and that is
Mm.
not characteristics for someone to challenge them. I had a scenario while I was on an interview. A person was asking me a question uh, for reasoning, and I'm not very good at reasoning. So if you ask me 10 times 20, I will struggle to calculate that. But if you give me a algebra, like okay, strong mathematics, and you give me and I will give you the solution, but I cannot give you the solution on the right point. I need to think, and then I can give you the answer. So when
Mm.
people are recruiting, um, they don't think about that. So they don't think about the character or the person they are hiring. They just apply same thing to everyone. Like, okay, I know this person, he has a PhD, and he will have this knowledge. But it's not like having the knowledge or not having the knowledge. It's like uh, yes, we know the knowledge, we understand the knowledge, but that is on a safe zone, and that safe box, Pandora box, we need to open it, we need to see it, and then we need to let you know that what is it about. So if someone is asking me to check my mathematic capabilities, they also need to understand that okay, I'm not good at reasoning, I'm good at critical mathematics. So they have to give me the critical one, and give me the time to do that critical one, or maybe give me the question before that I can prepare myself for that one. But it's not present at all. I have seen like at least maybe 5% of the businesses, they care for that. 95% of the businesses that I went for the interview, they didn't. And still I go for interviews to apply different places. Why? Because if I wanted to fix these problems, I need to see where the problems lies. So we have a connecting question from Urmi. She said, what are the some tools, what are some tools and platforms that support inclusivity in recruitment?
Okay, so I saw that one, and I was waiting for the right time to move on to it. Um, Unfortunately, the answer from me probably isn't going to be a very helpful one because I don't deal with recruitment myself. I do know of a platform called Breathe HR, which HR professionals tend to like a great deal. I'm not sure whether it focuses on recruitment. I know that it focuses on when somebody is actually in the workplace. But one thing that I would suggest is networking. Have a conversation with recruitment specialists, with HR professionals. They might be perfectly willing to point you in the right direction of a tool that they find particularly helpful.
Thank you, Richard. So thank you, everyone, for joining today's live webinar. We have Richard Hiron, the Hironator. Sorry, I have my pronouncing problem, so I might not pronounce it right. So excuse me for that. And that's another problem that I have, like memory loss as well as pronunciation, those words. And I've been continually challenged with people, okay, what you are saying, we don't understand it, you cannot do it, you cannot pronounce these words, and you have a PhD. And they don't see my problems, that a PhD and my disability is not same. My pronunciations is not giving me the PhD. My technical understanding, my technical know-how, and working with that has given me the PhD. So people normally will stereotype that, okay, you are not good at these things. How come you achieve that? And how we can change this view? That is my question to you.
I think that's bringing me back to the education point. I think there are two ways that this is going to change. One of them is legislation through Parliament. That's the forcing people to do something way of doing things. The other way is a cultural change. And to me, that comes down to education. Helping people to understand that literally the fact that somebody has a certain job title doesn't pigeonhole them into being a certain kind of person. They have to look beyond what that person's job title is, what their qualifications are, to truly understand who they are and to focus on understanding who they are. Because a job title, qualifications, they are simply a job title and qualifications. They aren't the person. So
Yeah.
I think for me, education is the nicer way of doing that. Worst comes to worst, probably legislation forcing somebody to do that, which isn't very nice.
No, no, no. I totally agree with you, because stereotyping things they must stop. As I say, if you are a black person, you are Asian, brown, you are white, you are Muslim, Christian, Jews, and a lot of individual things must stop, because we see the human first. That okay, you are a human. We don't see other than that. Okay, you are a human. If you have any cultural needs, religious needs, disability, and other needs, we can tailor that. Okay, we value you because you are a human, or that will change the society. Otherwise, it will not change. We will stereotype things, and we will muddle. The society will hinder. There will be more, struggle for people like us, and a lot of other peoples. So the employability that we wanted to improve or engage people from different routes, we cannot do it. I was talking someone yesterday to bring him as one of our guests, that people are he's a service provider, and now they are thinking to have an inclusive workforce. Like majority of the Bangladeshi speaking women, they are staying at home. They have knowledge, but they cannot implement their knowledge um, by working for them, anyone. So what they are trying to do, they're trying to educate the home-based people. Doesn't matter what their race is. If someone is at home, to train them to be in a situation that they can engage the workforce online rather than coming to the workforce. And thanks to the COVID, I'm thanking COVID. Sorry for that. We have now a situation that we don't need to be office based. I'm doing most of my work from home. I have my mother-in-law that I need to care for. I have my son to care for. So when I'm working from home, I can do that very well. But if I go to office, I cannot. So we have to create more inclusive workforce, as well as more people to look into, okay, how we can support them, how we can bring this community to the level that they can contribute greatly. So Richard, thank you very much for your contribution today. And to all the viewers, I also thank you for attending this live webinar. We just have a few more minutes left. So we wanted to talk about, at this point, the key takeaways, Richard. So what the audience take it from this webinar?
I think the first one, education, because it's a point that has come back and back and back again throughout our conversation. Education, educating people, reaching them is, if you like, it's a way of changing things. The law is a way of enforcing change. So it's two-pronged approach. I know which one I would prefer, even as a lawyer, to be educated about something. I think the second one is to bear in mind that businesses don't necessarily have a bottomless pit of money to draw from. So it could apply to a large company, it could apply to particularly an SME. It's having to accept in certain circumstances that change happens over time. And not every employer is really there trying to shortchange its employees. It's trying to do what it can when it can. So let's put that to one side. I think also it's a case that with HR, with employment law, they're not always the enemy, but they do take time to catch up, because that's just the way of the world. They are very much guided by the law. The law in this area relates back to the Equality Act, which is 14 years old now. Obviously, it's been updated during that time, but yes, we are looking, I think, over the threshold of big changes to come. So that's going to be something to really bear in mind over the weeks, months, and even years ahead, that new things are on the horizon. So we've got to keep our eyes open for them.
Thank you, Richard. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. And thank you to all the viewers for your questions, as well as supporting our channels. If you have any question, you can continue this conversation throughout LinkedIn and all other social media. This program is recorded, and you can review it. And if you want to ask any question to Richard, feel free to contact him through the social media. He's a pro level on LinkedIn, and he also supports businesses. So specifically, if you wanted to work with him, there's a good opportunity to understand employability and law. And he have a wealth of knowledge. As I said, we all have a Pandora box. And if you need something, we will search our Pandora box and we can give you a right information. If you don't know, we will say no, or we will learn it and then work for you. And that's the way the neurodivergent people work. And that's the way the neurodivergent community can look into individual things. So you need to understand, if you are hiring someone, you need to understand specifically who they are and what they want, what is their needs. If you don't understand their needs, you cannot create an inclusive workforce, because understanding and applying individual needs will create an inclusive workforce. So thank you, Richard, for joining today. And to all the viewers, please stay on the line. I will just say bye-bye to the audience, and then we will have a chat. So thank you for this live webinar, and for your contribution. Next week, we will bring another guest, and we will talk about it. And if you have any question, you can ask us. The events is already over there, and we appreciate your support, and please keep continually supporting our channels. So I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui. We're going to say bye-bye to you, and I will welcome you to the next episode of NBC's live webinar. And you also know that I do other lives on LinkedIn. On Wednesday, I do an audio event, and that event is totally dedicated to business development, sales, and all other things, technology. And I also do a live webinar on Friday, 4 to 5 p.m., and that is dedicated to business development, technology, software development, and training and mentoring. And I have started a monthly live with the Ferrum Innovation Center, Anna Bromington, and with her organization. So if you wanted to watch those things, we do it every second Thursday of each calendar month. So we will bring individual speakers to give you and aid you knowledge. I know that we are doing a lot of live now, and I think that doing lives can increase the education, increase the training and awareness. So please support our work, and thank you. Bye bye. See you next week.